Hi everyone, our research for today is all about the jeepney drivers and their life experiences during the COVID-19 pandemic. Presented by Bantiki Christian J, Milianes Kathleen, and Tolentino Maria Christine. I'm Kathleen Milianes and I will discuss about the abstract. The majority of Filipino rely on jeepneys or king of the road as a transportation mode of Filipino daily lives. Public transportation provides mobility and access to employment, community resources, medical care, and recreational opportunities in communities across the Philippines. It benefits both of those Filipinos who have vehicle and commuters because of the cheapest fare. Jeepneys show importance as a mode of transportation and an icon Filipino cultures. The jeepney drivers are struggling since the COVID-19 started here in the Philippines. The government implements a tight lockdown, resulting in the jeepney drivers being dismissed. Many drivers are begging on the roads and asking for small help for the government and hoping for the drivers to drive again. Some of them take another job to have money to provide food for their families. The main objective of the study is to describe the life experiences, challenges faced of the jeepney drivers during the pandemic. We all know pag sinabi natin King of the Road, ang tatatak sa isip natin mga Pilipino ay jeepney. The number one transportation natin sa bansa. Kahit saan ka magpunta sa Pilipinas ay mayroong jeep. Ginagamit din natin ito para makapag-deliver ng mga goods sa iba't ibang lugar sa Pilipinas. Simula nung dumating ang pandemic, hindi natin alam kung ano nangyari sa kanila. Other people would give jeepney driver any amount of money. And they are very thankful to accept it, to have something to eat. But sometimes, they will take just once a day. That's what they experience during this lockdown. Some of them say that sometimes, if there no one will help the jeepney driver, they don't eat at all. Dahil pinatupad ng government na ang buong Metro Manila ay magla-lockdown. Nakita na lang natin ng mga jeepney drivers na namamalimos sa kalsada, nanghihingi ng tulong dahil sila ay wala nang makain o wala nang pinagkukunan ng pagkain. Dahil sila hindi pwedeng mamasada, limited lamang din ang lumalabas dahil sa pagdami ng mga taong may COVID. Makikita natin sa research study na ito kung ano nga ba ang naging buhay nila simula nang dumating ang pandemic. Kung ano ang mga naging challenges na dumating sa buhay nila at paano nila ito nalagpasan.
Hypothesis. We believed that more than half of the interviewee relied on the government's assistance. As for the result of our interview, it is proven that more than half of the 10 jeepney drivers depended on the government's aid. One interviewee said that he was an OFW and his savings helped his family to adjust on the said pandemic. The other one said that due to this virus, he was tempted to sell his mother's estate in order for his family and relatives to cope up with the pandemic. While the other jeepney drivers relied on the government's fund and their association's reliefs. 80% of the jeepney drivers we interviewed relied on the government's aid as they don't have anyone to rely on, while the 20% managed to survive their everyday expenses by selling an estate and with the help of their savings. We came up with the idea that they will need assistance because this has been a very difficult matter for them and to all of us. They only have their jeepneys as their primary source of income, and the moment that it has been taken from them, they'll be in big trouble, which is surviving in this pandemic. This COVID-19 pandemic affects everyone, some more drastically than others, and for several families, it could mean making big changes to their daily routine due to financial difficulties. Indeed, even before COVID-19, life was hard. However, it was tolerable. Jeepney drivers are now suffering not just because of not being allowed to drive, but also the government has a program to evict all the old vehicles like jeepney. Modernizing the jeepney has no problem for drivers, but they ask for a little consideration in this pandemic because they have no other source of money when they stop to drive their jeepneys.
Background of the study. The jeepney drivers are one of the victims of pandemic. The pandemic makes them hungry and they have nothing to do but find another source of income. They are thinking about their family on how they are going to feed them. Because of the pandemic, they are forced to stop their routine on being a driver. When they are allowed again to be back in their usual way, the jeepney drivers ensure the safety measurement and protocol are followed. The other jeepney drivers are selling fruits, vegetable, and other products. The jeepney drivers have nowhere to go and no one relies on them. It's embarrassing to ask for help from their relatives and everyday. So the drivers gather the courage and help from other people who are willing to help them so they can eat. The drivers had to make their vehicle virus safe by installing plastic seat dividers and reducing capacity to comply with social distancing regulation.
Because of the pandemic, their salary decreases a lot. As the COVID-19 pandemic spread, the drivers are not just looking for money, but also for assurance, assistance, and protection on their own respective companies. Companies should not leave them behind and provide all the necessities they needed. So, salaries are significantly reduced due to the pandemic. As the COVID-19 pandemic spreads, drivers are looking not just for money, but for guarantees, support, and protection from their own companies. Companies should not leave them alone and give them everything they needed.
In this time of the pandemic, no one should be left behind. Drivers will require extra help and direction to keep up mental and actual well-being. So even though it is hard for each driver to stop their work, they did it for their family's security. It's embarrassing to ask for help from their relatives every day, so the drivers gathered the courage and asked for help from the other people who are willing to help them so they can eat. Other people would give jeepney driver any amount of money, and they are very thankful to accept it to have something to eat. But sometimes, they will take just once a day. That's what they experienced during this lockdown. The jobless drivers have turned to ask in the roads, showing cardboard signs bearing cash and food requests on their jeepneys. And before the outbreak began, jeepneys had just been undermined by an administration program to modernize public vehicles and eliminate maturing vehicles. As the virus spread in the country, they were forced to stop in their old routine to avoid contacting each other, resulting in them not having enough money to spend with their family. That is why we conducted this research for us to be able to know more about their difficulties and how they cope up with the pandemic.
Methodology. The study focuses on jeepney drivers that experience hardship under the COVID-19 pandemic. The purpose of the research is to understand and have a broad knowledge of the driver situations. The whole world is suffering because of the pandemic. The study used an interview to facilitate the efficient and effective gathering of responses. The researcher uses the Filipino language to provide a comfortable environment and to encourage deeper responses from respondents. The questions were classified into different sections. The first part of the interview focuses on the experience of those respondents during this pandemic. The second part included questions about the jeepney drivers' challenges. The last part included issues related to their coping mechanism. First of all, what is methodology? Research methodology is a specific procedure or techniques used to identify, select, process, and analyze information about a topic. In a research paper, the methodology sections allows the reader to critically evaluate a study's overall validity and reliability. We use qualitative because qualitative refers to the non-numerical elements in the research. When the information or data cannot be grasped in terms of numbers, qualitative research comes for the rescue.
Thank you for listening, everyone, and have a good day.